Beth. Nice to meet you. I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, it's great to meet you as well. Absolutely adored Turbulence, but I
Oh,
have to
thank
say
you.
I was stressed out the entire time.
Should I say I'm sorry, or is that a good thing?
A little of both.
A
Little of
little
both.
bit both.
No,
Okay,
it was definitely a great
I
thing.
apologize.
Um, what was it about the story that really drew you in to want to direct it?
I think what was interesting about this, besides the technical challenge of it all, um, is to think of a story that keeps you interested for 70 minutes between four characters in a basket of a hot air balloon. Kind of reminded me of a movie that I adored when I grew up seeing Dead Calm by Philip Noyce with Billy Zane and Nicole Kidman. I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool thing that cinema can do, where it gets you stuck with a very small personnel in a place, and you have to kind of find out who they are to each other, and what it is that they hide from each other, the secrets and the lies and stuff that happen between those four characters. I thought that was really appealing, and then of course set against this tremendous, you know, beauty of the Dolomites. That is cinema right there.
Um, what was it like for you to balance the human drama with the action and kind of like because you found the perfect balance.
Oh, thank you.
So, like, what was your approach? How'd you do it?
Well, I think so. My thinking was that this is a little bit of an allegorical tale, if you think about it. It's called Turbulence. The journey that the basket undergoes, being exposed to this tremendous force of nature, and the nature itself is sort of a mirror to what's going on between the characters. So if this marriage between Zach and Emmy has to weather a storm, they actually have to weather a storm. You know what I mean? So it kind of, there's the allegorical aspect, and I think there's also a discussion that I had with Hera early on. So this idea of being suspended in a suspended state, above the earth, with your feet not on the ground, puts you in a sort of reflective mood, a reflective sort of. It's almost like a bit of a fever dream. You know what I mean? And then that, along with the idea, if you think about it, they take off in the morning, right? And then we never have any time jump in the entire story, but they land at night, or whoever lands at night, without spoiling anything. Uh, and you never feel. I cannot cut away to anything. I'm stuck with them as an audience. I'm stuck with them like they are stuck on this basket, and time sort of warps. It becomes a different thing without ever noticing it. I think that sort of is almost a little bit of a stylized approach to what's going on, and maybe that gave me license to also shoot everything, which was a necessity. Shoot against blue screen, which inevitably leads to some artificiality in the look and in the feel of it all. But I felt like, well, if we embrace it as an allegorical tale that mirrors what's going on between the characters, maybe the audience will take this leap of faith with us and go with it.
You mentioned filming against a blue screen. Was the entire thing against blue screen, or did you actually get to go up into hot air balloon and do some of it practically?
So it's a little bit of both, but mostly against blue screen. So the challenging moment really is where you do have to take the leap of faith as an audience, is the takeoff, right? So the takeoff was shot with a half a balloon that was hanging off a crane, so it was controlled in its ascent, um, in London, in Richmond Park, which is beautiful but has no mountains. So we had to shoot all the mountains beforehand in the Dolomites, and bring these mountains into the surrounding of Richmond Park. And then we could lift off with the basket to a certain extent with the actors in it, and do some drone shots around it that we then came back to and used to switch out, to put in. But then once they have a certain altitude, there's no safe way of shooting it up in the air, and no access for the cameras, and certainly not on our footprint. So everything else was then on a stage inside, which was very, very tricky to do, and required an unusual amount of imagination from the actors as well as the crew.
Yeah, having four people stuck in a tiny basket, I can just imagine how complicated that was.
Yeah, it's limiting. You know what I mean? You kind of you take away all of these wonderful tools that cinema has or filmmaking has with switching locations and speeding things up and then cutting away to things. Yeah, you're stuck. All you have is these four faces, but also all you have is these four faces, and they're the most valuable thing, anyways. So focusing on that and shooting against blue screen allowed you to do that. You don't at some point you're no longer distracted by what the background looks like because all you have is the foreground at that point in time. So it focuses you on what's actually important, and that was sort of a way to hopefully turn the disadvantage into an advantage as a filmmaker.
That's really interesting. Thank you for that explanation. Um, what I thought was really interesting is that this film is not completely dissimilar from your previous film, No Way Up, in
Yeah.
terms of having a smaller claustrophobic set.
Mhm.
So now that you kind of minimized it even more, for your next one, can
What's
we
next? There's
expect you to
one.
get smaller?
No, I don't think so. I think well, it's definitely this is all Andy Mason's fault. Or credit to him. He comes up with these things, right? And we had such a good time on No Way Up that he proposed to do this, and I said, "Well, I immediately, of course." Um, what's fundamentally different between those two movies is that there's no sharks, meaning the first one had sharks. It's an external threat, right? And you kind of you fall into those tropes for good or for bad. In this one, the antagonist is in the basket. It's the people. You know what I mean? And thought that was a fundamental difference that required for the movie to be very, from ground up different. You had to have these layered characters, and it's more of a story about these characters. This wouldn't be a movie if it wasn't for what Olga's character Julia had done or claims to have done. If she wasn't there, there would be no movie. Previous movie, the plane crashes, there's sharks, there's a movie, right? So that was an interesting. But to answer your question, the next one, I hope it's going to be something completely different, whatever that is.
I just wondered if you were going to keep going down this
Yeah.
track.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. There's something about it, It's also as a filmmaker, I think, particularly these days, beggars can't be choosers. Whatever you can get made in this day and age, you better try your best, getting it done. It's not so much of a choice always, but if if but this one, of course, felt like a gift rather than a choice.
Um, what is something that you hope people take away from watching this movie?
Well, I hope that they take this leap of faith and go on this hot air balloon with these characters in order to find out what it is that they did to each other, what they mean to each other, and hopefully are interested in following the marriage, whether it unravels or re-ravels. Is that a word? That's not a word. But whether it solidifies or unravels, and why, and hopefully there's interest in finding out who they are to each other, and who's coming out whole at the end. Um, and Yeah, that's that.
I do have to say it was a very satisfying ending.
Oh yeah, the ending I'm very proud of. I'm not sure we don't want to spoil too much, but I am very proud of the ending, and it was not my idea at all. It was the actor or actress who came up with this idea, um, and put it in front of me, and because I had a hard time halfway through the shoot, I still didn't feel like I had a shot to end on. I didn't know, and I was quite nervous about it. And it was that idea that kind of propelled everything into, oh, yeah, that's what it is. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. It was
Thank
great.
you.
My final question for you is actually something that Kelsey Grammer's character says at the toward the beginning of ballooning being the safest mode of air travel.
Yes.
I've never considered be like traveling via hot air balloon. And after this movie, I don't know if I want to. But
That's not what I wanted to achieve, but yeah, sure.
is it true that that's the
Yeah.
safest mode of
So
air
that's
travel?
what they do say. Whenever you get on a balloon, that's part of the protocol that they say this is actually the safest mode of air transport. And yeah, by comparison, it is supposedly absolutely true. I will also say, having been in a hot air balloon in preparation of this movie, it is incredibly serene. What's surprising is that, for instance, it's very still up there because you travel with the wind for the most part. Only if you hit serious turbulence, which you inevitably you don't, because if there's even the slightest bit of a chance of bad weather, they don't fly. You can only fly a hot air balloon in absolutely pristine weather where nothing can happen. So you inevitably you're going to have very beautiful, very sort of meditative experience. Having said that, if you're afraid of heights, which I am,
Yeah.
I can't say that I was comfortable up there. And then and to add on to it, the landing is never a landing. It's always like a semi-controlled crash. There is no. It's not like a plane where you're like, okay, here we go. No, no, no. This just comes down and you're gonna hit trees and stuff, which I actually found kind of fun. Um, but it's not quite as good. So when Kelsey's character says, you have to surrender to the elements, you have to surrender to the elements.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for chatting. Again, I loved Turbulence. I was very stressed out, but I'm gonna rewatch it again and
Thank you so much.
hopefully catch those serene moments. So
Yes, please do. Well, thank you so much, Beth. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.